The recording, Thomas. Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome everybody to I think it's the first cooking class of the spring semester. I'm Kim Guess. I'm a dietitian with Be Well at Work Wellness Program. And our theme today is quick and easy meals. So we have a dumpling bake and we also have Greek nachos. So let's switch the camera and get started. Okay. So quick and easy meals. These two recipes have kind of minimal prep time. I've done a few different versions of this class, and sometimes there's different variations of quick and easy. Like I think the last time I did it, the theme was just dump everything in the pot or pan and let it cook. So if that sounds good to you, you can check out those options on our website. We also did a no cook quick and easy meals class. So I think what was it? Tofu egg salad and a couple of other things that just require no cooking at all. So we have tons and tons of recipes on our website on Cookwell Berkeley. So it's a really good resource. We kind of have it in a format where you can just easily browse them and see the photos and click on the recipes that look good to you. And we're currently redoing that web page to make it more accessible. So check that out. All right, so the first recipe we are going to do is the dumpling bake. So you have samples there. They might be a little spicy, so if it's kind of hot, you might want to eat some of the like creamy stuff on the nachos afterwards. I always try to keep things pretty mild, but I tried a new curry paste, so I'm going to talk about that too. So you may have has anybody seen this recipe idea before, this dumpling bake? Okay, a few of us had seen it. It kind of went viral, you know. So the original recipe was from oops, a website called Healthy Girl Kitchen. And I love dumplings and curry, so I had to try it. So basically what we're gonna do is mix up the sauce right into the baking dish, and then we're gonna put the dumplings and the bok choy in there. So first, let's make our sauce. So we need a few things. We're gonna use coconut milk, some curry paste, and soy sauce. We're also going to use some ginger and garlic. So both these recipes can get pretty salty quickly, so I'll give you some recommendations on how to manage the sodium content. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna put in here is let's do all the sauce ingredients. We're gonna do 1 cup of water. And you can adjust the amount of water or maybe actually do it at the end. It depends on what type of coconut milk you use. So I'm using a regular coconut milk. If you use light coconut milk, it has more water, so you probably want to add barely any water and just add a little more of the coconut milk. Or if you use coconut cream, it's a lot thicker. So in that case, use a little less cream, a little more water. So you'll have to kind of adjust it based on what you're using. Okay, so we're gonna do a 1/4 cup of coconut milk, and I tried really hard to shake this up and it's still separated, especially if it's cold. So in that case, you might want to try to break it up a little. And you can see the liquid at the bottom. Sometimes it's really watery, but this is pretty milky. So I think what I'm gonna do is I want to get a little bit of the solids. And then, so you can see on the camera. And then I'm gonna pour the milk in to get about a 1/4 cup. And then I'm gonna whisk it and it will kind of melt and combine as it cooks. So it's okay if it's a little chunky. Okay, next we're gonna add our curry paste. So I tried a new brand today that was a little spicier than I realized, so I apologize if it's a little hot. This brand comes in a can. It's pretty affordable. This is like 2 something at Berkeley Bowl. It is vegan, Some types of curry paste have fish and or shrimp in it. So if you're allergic to either of those or vegetarian or vegan, that's something to watch out for. Um, the brand that I really like is this one, May Ploy. Let's see if you can see it on the camera. This one does have, or most of their flavors do have shrimp in them, but they're really flavorful. Um, the brand that you're probably most likely to find at the grocery store, it comes in a little jar. And it is usually vegan, not spicy at all, and in my opinion, not very flavorful. So that will work if that's all you can find, but it's personally not my favorite. So if you use a curry paste that is less flavorful, you might want a little more. For this one, it's pretty strong, so I recommend just 1 tablespoon. So that might take a little bit of experimentation to find out what works for you. Okay, so I'm gonna add, I'll show you what the texture kind of looks like, the curry paste. So this is chilies and there's like ginger and galangal and all kinds of good stuff. Shallot, lemongrass, macroot, lime, spices, garlic. So that's the good stuff. We'll try just 1 tablespoon. In the samples, I did about 1.5 tablespoons because what I read about this curry paste is that it was a little less spicy and less salty, so I added a little extra. So the recipe calls for a tablespoon of reduced sodium soy sauce, and even reduced sodium soy sauce can still have a lot of salt in it, a lot of sodium. And if you get a good curry paste that has a lot of flavor, I don't think it's really necessary. So I did put it in the samples, but I'm just going to leave it out for the demo because I don't think it's necessary and it does add a lot of salt. So kind of mix that up a little bit, and then we're gonna add 2 cloves of garlic minced. And we're also gonna add some ginger. Okay, so to mince this, I'm just gonna whack it a little bit. Let's get a compost bowl going here to keep things a little tidier. I know I'm a messy cook. Is anybody else here a messy cook? Yeah, okay, we're not alone. Okay, now we're just gonna mince up the 2 cloves of garlic. And if you have, garlic in a jar or the frozen stuff that's already minced up, you can use that as well to save a little time. 2 cloves. Okay, let's throw that in. And then for the ginger, we need 1 teaspoon of grated ginger. You can also use the stuff in the jar or that's frozen or in a tube if you want, but it's pretty easy to do it fresh. So I'm just going to use a spoon to get the peel off. And I didn't need a lot for this recipe, so I just bought this little nub and it barely cost anything. Okay, so that is all peeled. And then I'm going to use a microplane to grate it. And we just need 1 teaspoon. And that's everything. Since we're gonna skip the soy sauce, and then we'll just add just enough water because we don't want it to be too watery. And then if this style of eating the dumplings isn't for you, you could also make a soup out of this where maybe you don't necessarily need the curry, but you could saute the garlic and ginger and a little bit of sesame oil And then maybe throw in some quick cooking vegetables like shredded carrots or spinach, and then throw in the frozen dumplings and some broth and have kind of an easy soup. Okay, so I added most of the water. I added about 3/4 cup, but that looks to me thin enough. Hopefully you can kind of get an idea of the texture on the camera. So I don't want it to be too watery, so I'm just gonna stop there. And next we're gonna get our vegetables. So I'm using bok choy, but you could also use spinach, like baby spinach, and then you don't have to cut anything. So that makes it really easy, but it does cook down a lot. So you'll probably want to at least double it, and it won't be quite as hearty. So I kind of like bok choy because it's a bit heartier and it will stand up to the cooking a little bit better. I already washed this pretty well, but sometimes I'll cut it open and kind of wash this part too, because a lot of dirt can get trapped in there. But I usually like to cut the bok choy in half and then soak it in a bowl of water and really shake it around to get some of that dirt out. Because sometimes you cook bok choy just like this, right? Like whole. I'm using baby bok choy. You can use regular bok choy, which is usually a lot longer. It's white on top. Come in. But it has less of the leafy part. I really like the leafy part, so I went with the baby bok choy. And we need about 2 cups. And this was pretty big for a baby bok choy, so you can see just 1/2 is probably giving us about a cup. And then I don't really like this tough core part right here, so I just cut that out. And then the white parts are a bit tougher and take a little longer to cook. So I like to cut those pretty small so that you don't get huge bites of just the white part. And then I leave the leafy part a little bit bigger. So that's gonna cook down. So we're just gonna toss that right into the pan. And then we're gonna add our dumplings. We need about a pound of dumplings that I'm just using frozen ones that I've thawed. You can also find dumplings that are refrigerated, so you don't need to thaw them, but I would thaw them first, otherwise they will take a little while to cook, or they'll take longer to cook. So if you're, planning to make this dish after work, then I would just take the dumplings out of the freezer and put them in the fridge overnight, and then they'll thaw. Okay, so then we're just gonna kind of nestle them in, and I'm gonna put this pinch side, the seam side down. And I'm using a square, like 8x8 or maybe 9x9 pan. So you want to make sure you're using the right pan size. If you use a bigger pan, like a 13x9, then it's going to be a little too big and the dumplings won't sit in there as well. So try to use a square pan like this if you can. Otherwise, if you only have really big casserole dishes, you might need to just increase everything, the volume by a little bit, to make sure that there's not too little. All right, I'm gonna borrow this. So yeah, you just kind of nestle them in, and then I want everything to get a little sauce, so I'm just gonna scoot that aside and drizzle the sauce over everything so that it doesn't get dried out. And then you're gonna cover this with foil or whatever you have to cover baked things, and bake it for about 20 minutes at 425, and then it will be ready to go. So you could have this as your meal. It's got the vegetables, depending on what type of dumplings you use. It's probably got some protein in there, and a whole lot of flavor. But if you want to make the meal a little heartier, you could serve it with another vegetable. I like to make a smashed cucumber salad as a really quick side. It's really easy, it's refreshing, and when you smash the cucumbers, it creates lots of nooks and crannies to hold on to the dressing. So you can whip that up in just a few minutes if you want another side. All right, so that is the dumplings. Let me just straighten up a little bit.
Did you pre-make this, leave it on the fridge and then we get home something or?
That's a good idea, actually. I think you could pre-make it. You could assemble this, and it should be fine for a day or something, and then just bake it when you get home and save yourself even more time. All right. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I said everything I want to tell you about that. Oh yeah, I just want to talk about the bok choy real quick. So, you can use other leafy greens. But I like bok choy. It's a cruciferous vegetable in the same family as things like kale, broccoli, cauliflower, and all those vegetables are associated with a lower risk of heart disease and some types of cancer. Bok choy also has a lot of vitamin C, some vitamin K, and a little bit of calcium and a little bit of other micronutrients. Its peak season is March to May, so it's coming up. It's also in season in the fall. And when you buy it at the store, you want to look for firm stalks that are crisp and leaves that aren't yellowing or wilting. And then, like I said, there's regular bok choy, and then there's the baby one, the baby bok choy, similar to other baby versions of leafy greens, will be more tender. To store it, you can wrap it in a towel and put it in a bag and place it in the crisper drawer of your refrigerator. And fun fact, bok choy means white vegetable in Cantonese. Okay, so let's go ahead and make the nachos now. You could, oh, sure.
About the dish,
Uh-huh.
on the garlic, you mentioned, buying pre-cut and like pre-minced.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a big drop off in value, nutrition for quality? Like a jar of minced garlic versus two?
Yeah, I think in terms of the quality, it kind of depends on how you're using it. I would say for something that's going to be baked for a while, it's not as much of a difference, but maybe if you were going to add it raw, it would have a different flavor. It wouldn't be quite as nice.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, something where like the garlic is more forward in the dish. In terms of nutrition, I'm not sure how much it changes with garlic. I know that some of the beneficial compounds actually become more available after like 15 minutes after you cut it. So when you cut garlic, if you don't add it to the dish right away, you get a little bit more. I don't know if it's a huge difference, but I would say it's such a small amount in this recipe that I wouldn't worry too much about losing any nutritional benefits. Okay, so let's do the nachos. Also, like I mentioned with the dumplings, this can get salty quickly. I went ahead and just threw all the toppings at you for the samples, just so you could try them all, but feel free to leave out any of the ones that you don't like or that you can't find or whatever. You could also make this as sort of a salad if you want to just skip the pita chips. So it is kind of like a salad. But yeah, the idea is that it's kind of fun and easy. There's not really any cooking involved. You just dump whatever toppings you want on there. All right, so we are going to use a few vegetables. So we have cucumber. We're going to make a little salsa, kind of like a Greek version of salsa. Oh, and I forgot to mention for the dumplings, I like to finish it with some sliced green onion after it's cooked. Also, chili crisp makes everything really good. So I use this one. It's not spicy at all from Trader Joe's chili onion, but just so you could kind of get that taste of like the oil, the onion, the garlic, and also some toasted sesame seeds. So usually when you buy sesame seeds, they're raw, and toasting them a little bit just really helps bring out the flavor and the crunch. Okay, so for the veggies, we're going to use a cup of tomatoes, which are not quite in season yet, so they're not going to be as red and ripe as they would be in the summertime when they are in season. But that's okay. Will be here before we know it. And I'm gonna just quarter them because I basically want everything to be a small, manageable bite so you can get a little bit of everything in each bite of the nachos. And the tomatoes provide some vitamin C, which helps you absorb the iron in the beans if you're using them, or if you use falafel, which I did throw in there. That's made from chickpeas, so similarly, those are all good sources of iron. And tomatoes also have lycopene, which is a carotenoid and antioxidant, although you actually get more of it when it's cooked. So in things like tomato paste or tomato sauce, you get more of the lycopene. And when you buy tomatoes, you want to look for bright, uniform red, smooth, glossy skin, and firm but slightly springy. And you really want to try to store tomatoes at room temperature if you can. I see a lot of people storing them in the fridge. But that's not great for the taste and the texture. They get kind of mealy and they kind of lose their flavor. So unless it's a really hot day in your kitchen or you're going to store them for more than a few days, then room temperature is really best. Okay, so we have the tomatoes. Usually cherry tomatoes come in a pint, which is about 2 cups. So you'll use about half of it. But again, this recipe is kind of like a salad. You can add as much, as little, or not at all of any of the ingredients. So you don't have to worry too much about measuring that carefully. And then for the cucumber, we also want approximately a cup, again, kind of small bite-sized pieces. So I have an English cucumber that I cut in quarters, and I'm just going to cut everything into thin slices this way. And, cucumbers aren't the most nutritious, mostly because they're a whole lot of water, so they are hydrating. And they do have some nutrition that's concentrated in the peel. So I like to use these English cucumbers or the Japanese ones or Persian cucumbers where the skin is more tender and you can eat it and it just kind of looks nice when you get that nice bright green. So that's where you're going to get more of the vitamin K and flavonoids that are mildly anti-inflammatory. And when you are buying cucumbers, these are also in season in the summer, but around here they're kind of available anytime, but they'll be a little fresher and maybe tastier in the summer. So you want to look for no soft spots, not too many wrinkles. I mean, this is a wrinkly cucumber by nature, but when, if you've ever seen a cucumber getting older, this will be like really wrinkly and you can tell that it's just drying out inside. So you want to avoid that. You don't want anything to be sunken or slimy. Those are all signs of an old cucumber. So this kind usually comes wrapped in plastic, which makes it a little harder to tell, to look for all those cues, but that helps it last longer. So you can store it in the crisper drawer of your fridge or in a loosely closed bag for about up to a week or so. Okay, so now I'm gonna also make a little salsa. Get our ingredients. Okay, I'm going to use these roasted red peppers to make something like a salsa. So these ones are already roasted and julienned, so I just need to dice them up a little smaller. And again, this step is totally optional. I just wanted to show you kind of everything. Let's get a spoon. Okay, I'm just going to use a measuring spoon. And yeah, you'll see these in different formats at the grocery store. You can also buy pimentos that are already finely diced, but they're usually not roasted. But the roasting is just going to give it a little extra nice flavor. And we need about half a cup. Okay. Cup. Yeah, but I'm just going to eyeball that. And the bell peppers, especially red bell peppers, because they come in all different colors. And I'm just going to kind of rock the knife over it to cut it up a little bit smaller. But bell peppers, especially red, have a lot of vitamin C. And I actually looked into it, and we're only using half a cup for this recipe that serves, I think, 4 people or so. And even in the small amount of red pepper you get per serving, you can get 25 to 40% of your daily vitamin C from bell peppers. Okay. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of red onion to the salsa, just a tablespoon or so. So if you don't want to bother breaking out a red onion for 1 tablespoon, then you could just skip it, or you could use shallot or whatever other onion you have on hand. So I'm just going to cut off a little piece here and take off the skin. I usually take off the second layer too, because usually it's still pretty papery and just not very pleasant to eat. Cut off the little papery bit. And then I'm just going to mince it really fine. Okay. Whoops. That's probably about a tablespoon. And then we're gonna add some dried oregano. And if you know me, you know I love getting stuff in the bulk section, especially the herbs and spices because they're really affordable. Um, so this is dried oregano, and I don't remember how full the jar was, but it looks like I paid 20 cents for this, and there used to be more in here, so it's really, really cheap. Especially things that you don't use often. I actually use a lot of dried oregano, but yeah, herbs weigh hardly anything, so they, oops, wrong. They're very affordable by that way. So half a teaspoon of oregano. We're also going to add a little more garlic. I'm going to do 1 clove. Again, just kind of whack it. Get rid of all the paper. And mince this up nice and fine as well. Oh, a little paper in there. And because this is raw, I would mince up the garlic pretty fine because raw garlic is pretty strong, right? So you don't want to accidentally bite into a big old piece of it. When you're cooking it, it doesn't matter quite as much, but for raw, I don't want to surprise anybody with a big chunk of garlic. Oh. And then just for a little tang, I'm going to add some lemon juice. So it calls for half a teaspoon, which is just a little squeeze. Usually in a lemon, you can get probably like 2 to 4 tablespoons of lemon juice, if that helps you estimate how many lemons you need for a recipe. And then a little bit of olive oil just to kind of moisten the whole thing. And I didn't want to buy a whole bottle of olive oil for half a teaspoon, so I'm using grapeseed oil that we already had on hand, which kind of tastes like olive oil, but just a bit milder. Has a higher smoke point so that you can use it for slightly higher heat cooking than you could with olive oil. But it's not a perfect calculation because even the smoke point of olive oil really depends on a lot of different factors, but tends to be lower, so it's better for like low heat cooking or eating cold. Okay, so there's the salsa. Just a nice little extra touch you can add if you want, but you can totally leave that out. Again, I'm throwing all the toppings at you, so let me grab all of them here and show you what all the options are. Okay, so I added some chopped up falafel I just bought frozen, and you bake it for 10 to 15 minutes. So that's optional, and then I would just kind of give this a little chop. just so it's bite-sized. So we have that. Let's go ahead and build our nachos. And when I serve things like nachos, I like to use a big old pan. And so I'm using the pizza. So again, if you want to have this more of like a salad, you could just, you have to. You can also find whole wheat chips, or you can make your own. But again, I want to quick and give you, so I just got store-bought. And let's start throwing everything on now. We'll do a falafel first. So from falafel. You could also use beans and to replace the falafel or together. So I've already rinsed and drained these. So I'm gonna throw some on. You can also do chickpeas if you like chickpeas. I have a slight preference for the white beans, so like the milder flavor. Let's throw on the vegetables now. Cucumber. And the tomatoes. So you can see it coming together, looking very colorful and nutritious. I'm gonna add some of these peppers. These are actually banana peppers because they're out of pepperoncini, but that would probably be my preference, pepperoncini. And they're sliced. So if you think about, you know, what you would put on regular nachos, you might put jalapeno slices. So this is kind of like the Mediterranean alternative to that. Some more color. And let's see, let's do the tzatziki, which you can make yourself or you can buy store-bought. They actually have a vegan one at Trader Joe's, so I went ahead and bought that. Let's just kind of drizzle that on. So think of this as like the sour cream that you might have on nachos.
What is tzatziki?
Tzatziki is a yogurt sauce that has cucumber in it and I think usually dill. Let's see what this one is made with. Lemon juice, also cucumber, salt, pepper, dill. So sometimes you'll find it in Greek food, like on a gyro. You know, it's kind of creamy, cooling, kind of a nice what do you call it? Contrast to like cooked meat or falafel or something. Okay. Who here likes olives? I'm curious. Okay, most people like olives. I know that's usually like 25% of people or something don't really like olives. So you could definitely skip it if you're not an olive person, or if you don't want the saltiness of the olives, because they're probably the saltiest thing in this dish. I'm using pitted Kalamata olives, but you could use whatever you'd like. Not all Greek olives are dark like this. There's also green ones or mixed ones or ones that are packed with herbs and oil. So, you know, use whatever you'd like. I'm just gonna kind of give these a rough slicing. And let's see, let's do the salsa. Just gonna sprinkle it all over. Whoops. Okay. And for the cheese, I'm using feta cheese. This is also a vegan version, but feel free to use regular if you prefer. Or skip it. You know, you could skip the tzatziki if it's just a little too much creamy stuff for you. And the feta nice thing about feta is that you get a lot of flavor in a small package. It's a strong flavor, right? So you don't need as much cheese when it's something like a goat cheese, blue cheese, feta, as opposed to, say, American cheese or something milder, where you need kind of a lot of it to really be able to taste it. Okay. Set these aside. And I think the one thing that we're missing is the olives. Throw this on top. So you can see it looks fun and festive and has lots of flavor and texture, and vegetables on it. So you could have this for a party too. Let's hold it up so everybody can see on Zoom. And then that's it. So that did take a little while to put together, but you can adjust it to your taste and make it a little quicker if you'd like. Let me see what else I wanted to mention about this. So let's talk a little bit about the nutrients that we have here, which I kind of mentioned already, but I also added beans, which have protein and a lot of fiber, especially soluble fiber, which can help lower your cholesterol and is good for heart health. And most people in the US don't get enough fiber. Because, okay, pop quiz, where do you get fiber from other than beans? Vegetables? Fruit?
Maybe some.
Grains, especially whole grains. A little bit in nuts and seeds. Basically plant foods. It comes from plants. And we also don't eat a lot of plants in the US. So we don't get fiber from like animal foods. So something like 90% of women and 97% of men don't get enough fiber in the US. And the recommendation, depending on, your nutrient needs, is like 25 to 36 grams. So just for example, in half a cup of beans, you get 6 grams, which is 21% of the daily value. So we're also getting fiber here from the falafel and the vegetables. See, is there any? There's less than 1 gram in the pita chips because these are refined grains. So you're not getting the benefit of the fiber quite as much. So the moral of the story is eat more plants when you can. It'll help you get enough fiber, which is good for helping you feel full. It's good for digestion. It's good for helping you have regular bowel movements. It's good for your cholesterol levels. So many things. Good for blood sugar control too. And most of us are not getting enough. But it's not too hard if you get more plants in your diet. So the beans also have minerals like copper, manganese, and iron, which are good for your immune system and your blood health. And again, when you pair a plant-based iron, like the kind that's in beans, with a source of vitamin C, it helps you absorb that iron. Because plant iron, unfortunately, is not as well absorbed as animal iron.
What kind of beans is better for stomach if it's sensitive, like easier to digest?
Oh, easier to digest. Okay, so the question is what type of beans are better if you have a hard time digesting them or it kind of upset your stomach? I think it can depend on the individual. It might be a little trial and error. But some things that I do to reduce that like gassy effect that beans can give, it's coming from the sugars in the beans that we can't digest. So for one, I think it helps if you rinse your beans after and you get some of that, the liquid that comes in the can. If you ever cook beans from scratch, from dry, the method that seems to be the best for reducing those gas-causing sugars is the quick soak method, where you put the dried beans in the pot, bring it to a boil, turn off the heat, and then just let it sit for an hour. And that's like pre-cooking them, equivalent to soaking them overnight. And then you dump out the water, put new water in, and then cook it. That seems to help with the sugars. I think also just the overall approach, like starting with smaller portions and working your way up, is kind of good advice for eating more fiber in general and making sure you have plenty of water. Um, and yeah, I think I don't know if there's a type that seems to be better. I know I personally don't can't eat too many chickpeas, so that's what I've personally noticed. Um, But yeah, I would try to keep the portions small and work your way up gradually. But yeah, that's a good question, especially not to go off on too much of a tangent, but for people with IBS, you may have heard of the low FODMAP diet, which is like an acronym that stands for basically short, medium, and short chain carbohydrates that can be harder for some people to digest. But the idea is that you try reducing all those and gradually adding back different ones and see which ones you respond to. So in that case, it's like not all FODMAPs are triggering for people with IBS, but it's a good place to start to see, which ones, which FODMAP sources are triggering, and beans are one of them for some people. Okay, so I already talked about the cucumber and tomato and the bell pepper. So overall, with the recipe, we have vegetables, we have healthy fats from the olives, and there's some olive oil in there, and then the plant proteins from the beans and the falafel. So this was a pretty quick class because the theme was quick and easy. I was gonna try to sneak one more recipe in there, but I knew it'd be rushed.